Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1, Convergent Evolution, written by Kaiser5243. Many biologists worth Solnium will tell you that while the universe is massive and appears chaotic, the creation and evolution of life is actually quite predictable. It's simple, really. Traits that are effective in their surrounding environment get passed on while the rest are discarded. You'll notice in your travels that while there may be a slight regional differences in color or size, many species in our galactic republic are in fact very similar, even though their evolution occurs on planets galaxies apart. We know this theory as Convergent Evolution. The simple fact is certain biological designs work best in certain conditions, and given enough time, evolution will naturally fine-tune life to best survive, resulting in the repetitive evolutionary trees. Planets with high atmospheric pressure results in a soft-bodied beings better suited than those with rigid skeletons. Insectoid beings thrive on high oxygen atmospheres, while those deep underground develop large white eyes designed to trap the faintest light. Crystallized beings are common in irradiated planets, and don't even get me started on the disproportionate amount of crustaceans. I sometimes think that the end of times will only be witnessed by crabs. Using this prediction pattern, it's obvious that once the most efficient form is reached, evolution shifts focus from physical survivability to increased intelligence, leading evidentially to sapient life. This is what we look for. Hundreds of thousands of probes float through space, waiting and listening for the inevitable call of a new species trying to reach out to the stars. Once the call is received, an investigation begins and contact is made by the species most similar to them in the Republic, and are welcomed to the galactic stage with open arms. All except for one. You all know the myth of the Homo giganticus, giant humanoid creatures that are said to have ruled across the stars with their vast empires, constantly at war with each other, and subjugating every sentient race until none could stand against them except their own kind. Legends of Ymir, ruling from his throne on an ice planet so remote no star could warm it, waging war against the Titan King Kronos, who understood that manipulation of gravity affected how things passed through time, tell of the whole constellations being destroyed, while the Kraken sent his people to the lowest depths of the deepest oceans to find new slaves. Nowhere was safe, and those that did not live in constant fear were already dead. According to the stories you've been told, these monsters were defeated when all the other races joined forces and rose up, dethroning our oppressors and forming the republic you now know. I'm here to tell you that this is a fabrication by the Republic to hide the truth. The truth being that no matter the conditions, evolution will find a way to thrive, and when the giants did fall, it was not us. Those titans attempted to dominate nature itself, and in response, nature made something that would show them exactly how weak they were. The story started slowly. Tales of creatures similar in build to the giants, but only a fraction of their size. Nobody can agree where they originated, but it is universally agreed that the fall of dread Queen Gaia was the beginning of the end of the giants. They found themselves facing something new in the universe, a creature evolved to survive under the conditions that they themselves had created. They never stood a chance. Nature's answer to these titanic tyrants was called human. Unlike other species that evolved to dominate their species biome, humans seemed to be able to live anywhere. The deep oceans were no longer safe. The castles of ice and fire were no longer protected those inside. The giants created an environment of war, but the humans evolved to thrive in it. They exploded across the stars, raining violence upon their enemies with such a brutal efficiency that whole races of giants fell before they could form a counterattack. The war raged for millennia, and with each liberation, word spread that these humans did not fight the giants to enslave us themselves, as we had been told, but they fought simply because it was right. They fought and died by the millions for us simply because they thought that it was the right thing to do. And by the end of the war, both the humans and the giants fought to extinction. Now, I am sure you are wondering why I stand before you telling tall tales of mythical creatures that probably never existed. Tales of giants are used to scare children into behaving, and their defeat at the hands of the Republic is the official story. I would be willing to bet that not one person in this room had even heard of a human until right now. So, why am I wasting your time when the Republic hunts us, and every second we waste is another second the Chancellor has his hands around the throats of our people? The answer is quite simple. A new voice is calling out to the stars. Not just one, but hundreds. After 700 years of silence while the Chancellor imposed his authoritarian rule over those in the Republic. After centuries of system after system falling to its knees before him, a chorus of voices called to each other across the void. We've fought this evil as best as we could, but has looked down on shattered remains of the resistance before me. I'll admit that I had lost hope. Evolution, however, does not need hope. Nature is brutal and unforgiving, as we have learned over these dark centuries. But I will tell you now that we have not been fighting in vain. The deaths and sacrifices we have made in the fight against tyranny has not been for nothing. We answered their calls. We connected the distant planets together. We have shown them the state of the universe they wished to join, and they were disappointed. They stopped reaching out to the void, and I thought our last hope had abandoned us to our fate. But a new song has begun, not one of curiosity or wonder from a race wondering if it's alone in the universe, discordant and chaotic. This song is simple, unified in focus. It's both a message to our oppressors and a song of hope to those of us that still fight. Humanity has returned, and they beat the drums of war. End of story. Story number 2. An Unprotected Warp, written by Rebel Hero. Captain, the human didn't put on its anti-warp gear before we jumped, the first mate reported, antennae shaking. Sad to hear. Prepare the coffin and jettison it, the captain responded sadly. No, sir. The human. Nothing's happened to it. Didn't go insane from seeing infinity in the stars. The captain shuddered, and the first mate responded with a loud chittering noise of fear. The two rarest gestures of their species, happening simultaneously. The captain stilled itself and slowly picked up its translator. Bring me to the human, it said slowly. Jessica sat with her eyes covered, a cool, wet rag on her forehead, deftly maneuvering a small cube she always carried with her in her palm. She breathed slowly and deeply. Then when she heard the chime of the observation window, she slowly sat up. More tests? She asked, her voice slow and her words drawn out. Human Jessica, no more tests for now. Only questions. The translated voice of the captain came over the speakers. Do you mind if I lie down while I answer them? A click which Jessica knew to be an affirmative sound, though untranslatable. She laid back down slowly. What happened, human Jessica? Reports state that you were not wearing your anti-warp suit. No one thought to check that the suit issued to me was for a human. It was not. I couldn't get into it, she groaned, curling up slightly. She felt horribly exposed, like a goldfish in a bowl. Being the only human on a mixed-species vessel had some very embarrassing downsides. They just didn't understand the human need to always wear clothes. That is unfortunate. The quartermaster will be flayed as punishment for endangering your life. Jessica bolted upright to protest, but both a wave of nausea and a shrill sound she knew to be the equivalent of a shh cut her off. A standard punishment for their species. They will recover quickly. Now, you must tell us what happened during the warp. All reports suggest that you are the only living being to survive a warp unprotected. The translated voice sounded hurried, anxious. Once I realized that the suit wasn't going to fit, I knew that I was going to die. I went through the 7 stages of human grief in about the span of a minute. As the warp tunnel opened, I crawled into the locker. I figured that it would make my remains easier to recover and clean, given that I was sure to be turned into paste. But the acceleration I felt wasn't much more than my favorite roller coaster back on Earth. It was intense, for sure. Left me plastered to the wall, unable to move. Just when I thought I would black out, there was nothing. Nothingness itself, pure, infinite void, made my head hurt trying to comprehend it. That's it? That's all you saw? The voice sounded incredulous, almost angry. Yes, I mean, technically, I didn't see anything at all. None of my senses worked. No sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, nothing. But I was conscious. I know that much. There was a long silence. How is that possible? So many have died in warp accidents. Their eyes, their brains exploded upon the warp exit. Those that survived are driven mad and usually end up dead soon after. How, of all things, did a human make it out unscathed? Now the voice was angry. I don't know. I just stopped thinking about it, and when my head began to hurt. If Jessica had been able to see through the observation window, she would have watched as the 2 most feared and respected members of the crew, the captain and first mate, faint from shock. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakal, and Arcadian.